reported that Nigeria's President Goodluck Jonathan has finally made it known that he will run for president in Nigeria's elections in January 2011. Joining us now on how this may reshape the landscape in the run-up to the poll is Opeyemi Agbaje, the CEO of Resource and Trust Company. Thank you very much, Opeyemi, for coming through. It's been reported that he's confirmed his candidacy. Is it true?
Oh yes, it's believed that the president mentioned to some group of governors yesterday that he was certainly going to run in the January 2011 elections. He had also mentioned this to some group of northern politicians in the last 2 weeks, and essentially a campaign can be said to be on. So yeah, the president will run.
Okay, why has this been a talking point? When other people have already thrown their hat in the ring, why was everybody quite anxious about whether or not President Jonathan would contest?
I think, one, because he was being coy about it. He wanted, as he said, to do a lot of consultations. And I think he was particularly concerned about sentiment in the northern parts of the country and trying to reach out to them and be sure that he has enough support behind him before running. The other point about it is that those who are running against him have been pushing for him not to run and have stoked the controversy about whether he would run or not. I think most of the contenders within the PDP recognize that the race would be a lot tougher for them if the president was running.
Okay, let's talk about the fact that the PDP and all other parties for that matter still have to conduct primary elections which will take place over the next few weeks. Is it a foregone conclusion that President Jonathan would be the PDP's candidate?
No, you can't rule out an upset. There are a few formidable individuals who will probably contest against him for the PDP ticket. General Babangida, former head of state, military head of state, is almost certain to contest. He has publicly declared his intention. Alhaji Abubakar Atiku, the former vice president to Obasanjo, is probably going to be attempting to contest. It remains to be seen if the PDP will grant him the waiver it requires. And so and then perhaps one or two governors might even throw their hat into the ring in the last few days towards the campaign. So yeah, it will be a competitive race, but the president looks like the front runner.
You mentioned that he was still seeking some consultation and guidance and looking to get a consensus from the North. Why is this important? This whole issue of this tacit arrangement of rotating leadership between North and South in Nigeria.
Yes, the president needed to be a little bit sensitive to northern views. The Northerners, if you remember, provided the late President Umaru Yar'Adua, who had ruled for just 2.5 years or so. They had expected, under the assumptions that people take for granted in Nigerian politics, that Yar'Adua would rule for 2 terms of 4 years each, like Obasanjo from the south ruled for 8 years. And so they feel, some of them feel some sense of loss and would have wanted a northerner to take over in 2011. Of course, that assumption is complicated by the fact that you have a sitting president who is young, who is fairly competent, and who is entitled to assume that as a sitting president, he should be running for the election in 2011.
All right, let's talk about the challenge facing the newly appointed head of the Independent Electoral Commission. Over and above coordinating this presidential poll, he's got to organize a poll for gubernatorial polls, for governors, and all sorts of others for the National Assembly. Before that, he's got to get voter registration underway and compile a voter's roll of something like 70 million people. But it's been reported internationally that he doesn't have the funds, he doesn't have the manpower, and he doesn't have the technical tools to get this all done by January.
Frankly, it would be a minor miracle of some sort if we accomplish the activities slated towards the January elections in the time frame that they've been allotted. First of all, like you said, we need to register 70 million people. We haven't even procured the equipment, but the funds are now available. the presidency, the National Assembly has approved the budget as the INEC chair requested, and the presidency has released the funds to him. So he has the funds, but he now needs a rapid procurement process. They're dealing directly with manufacturers to shorten that process and to reduce the cost. And they hope to register voters between October and November and have a voters roll by the end of November. The parties are expected to organize conventions in September and October, and the first elections are supposed to take place very early in January. It's a Herculean task. I hope they can be accomplished. I think that Professor Jega is committed to accomplishing them, and I hope that he will get all the logistical support he needs, both locally and internationally. But it's going to be a tough task.
For international observers, Opeyemi, the main issue is the integrity of the poll. When they look at the aftermath of the 2007 election and all the legal challenges to the outcome, people really don't want to see a repeat of any of that. What's being done to ensure that this election is free and fair and has the integrity that is needed in terms of strengthening Nigeria's democracy?
I think we can commend President Jonathan in that regard. He has taken steps to appoint not just the INEC chair, who is quite regarded as being credible, independent-minded, and a person of integrity, and a few other commissioners who I think Nigerians have a lot more confidence in the electoral body. The second thing is that they've released all the funds. Sometimes the requests look exorbitant, but the government, so as not to give room for any issues, has released those funds to the commission. I think the decision by the commission to conduct a fresh voters register, even though it introduces some complications into the move, into the elections, is also commendable, because the former register was by all accounts a very bad document, and you needed a more credible voters register. So by and large, in terms of the signals are yes, we should have better elections in 2011. The challenge is the logistics and the execution of all those activities required to make that happen.
Opeyemi, very briefly, for investors, the basic issue is let the electoral process happen as needs to happen, but give us some indications as to whether or not there'll be changes in economic policy, whichever way the election goes. Is that a valid concern?
Well, yes, it could be valid. I mean, we saw Alhaji Umaru Yar'Adua, who was elected on the PDP platform, discontinue much of the reforms of his fellow party member, Obasanjo, who he took over from in 2007. We've seen Jonathan resume some of those reforms, even though he has limited time. So yeah, people matter. The occupant of the office, his views, his regional coalitions, and all of that matter in the direction of economic policy in Nigeria. So yeah, it does matter, but I don't think Nigeria will make a radical departure from, by and large, a move towards economic reform.